Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Uh, we are discussing about organizational framework of the United Nations. We have already discussed the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council. Fourth, next important organ of the United Nations is Trusteeship Council. During this discussion, we also discuss about and not only trusteeship council but trusteeship system, because trusteeship council and trusteeship system both are closely related. First of all, I explain you about trusteeship system. One point is very important to understand this discussion, and that is that trusteeship council and trusteeship system was the replacement of mandate system of the League of the Nations. The trusteeship council has been indicated as one of the major organs of the United Nations according to the Charter of the UN. General Assembly supervised different trust territories, and the Security Council assigned the duty to supervise strategic areas of the trust territories. If we examine composition of the trusteeship system and trusteeship council, then we find out a very strange situation, and that is that the charter did not prescribe, did not clear the size of the trusteeship council. Charter provided that the trusteeship council must reflect a balance between members that administer trust territories and members that do not. To ensure this balance, it was provided that the General Assembly may elect for 3 years as many members as may be necessary to ensure that the total membership of the trusteeship council is equally divided between those members of the United Nations which administer trust territories and those which do not. As the number of trust territories and administrating countries has decreased, the council has become smaller. The council elects a president from among the representative of the members of the council. In addition, it also elects a vice president from among the representative of member states of the trusteeship council. Each member of the council has only one vote. Most important point regarding the decision making procedure of the trusteeship council, that although 5 permanent members of the security council are also the member of trusteeship council, but they do not enjoy the right of veto power. So all the decisions of the trusteeship council are taken by majority vote of the members actually present and voting. Generally, the trusteeship council meets once a year, but special sessions can be convened at any time on the request of the majority of the members. To proceedings of the Council are conducted in accordance with the rules and procedures determined by the Trusteeship Council itself. Now I explain you about functions and powers of Trusteeship Council. The functions and powers of the Trusteeship Council have been outlined in Article 87 of the Charter. Its functions include consideration of reports submitted by the administrating authority, acceptance of petitions and their examination in consultation with the administrating authority, to arrange periodic visits to the respective trust territories at times agreed upon with the administrating authority, and to take other actions in conformity with the terms of the trusteeship agreements. Now I explain you about consideration of reports from administrating authority. Under the United Nations Charter, each administrating authority is expected to submit an annual report for the territories under its control. In this respect, it provides information regarding political, economic, social, and educational advancement of inhabitants of the territory under its control. The Council studies these reports with the help of specialized agencies and make necessary suggestions. On the basis of examining of these reports, the Council drafts a report of its own, which is incorporated in its annual reports to the General Assembly. In the case of non-strategic territories and areas, and to the Security Council in respect of strategic areas. This report generally contains the recommendations of the Council as well as the individual view of members. The Trusteeship Council receives and examines the petitions from individuals as well as organizations in the trust territories. On receipt of petition, the same are sent to the administrating authority for comments before these are examined by the Council. These petitions can cover a wide range of subjects such as property claims and titles, denial of civil and human rights, racial discrimination, poor educational services, and appeals for greater participation in local administration. The Trusteeship Council can also arrange periodic visits to the trust territories at times agreed upon with the administrating authority, to acquire first-hand information about the conditions and problems of the trust territories. Usually such missions are sent to each trust territories every 2 years. Commenting on the importance of such missions, Professor Palmer and Perkins highlighted his views. Flying the UN flag, members of the Commission meet openly with spokesmen of the native peoples as well as with local officials, visit different sections of territory, and bring home to the people the fact that the UN is concerned with their welfare and is working for their eventual freedom. The missions also give a representative of the Trusteeship Council and the Secretariat an opportunity to make first-hand investigations of the areas for which they are responsible. This reference of Professor Palmer and Perkin clearly explains basic purpose of the Trusteeship Council for the betterment and for the welfare of peoples of trust territories. In addition to the different functions, the Trusteeship Council also can take any other action in conformity with the terms of the Trusteeship Agreement. Now, I explain you about Trusteeship system. After examining the organization and functions of the Trusteeship Council, it is very necessary to know about the trusteeship system under the United Nations Charter. At the outset, it may be pointed out that the trusteeship system under the United Nations was a successor to the mandate system provided under the League of the Nations. I earlier explained you that trusteeship system was the replacement of the mandate system of the League of the Nation. It was wider in scope than the mandate system provided under the League of the Nation. Under the trusteeship system, the United Nations assume broad responsibility for the welfare of non-self-governing territories. Article 75 of the UN Charter provided, the United Nations shall establish under its authority an international trusteeship system for the administration and supervision of such territories as may be placed there under by subsequent individual agreement. The Charter stipulated that the following territories, that the different territories shall be placed under the trusteeship system. So, Charter of United Nations clear and mention territories under this system. Now I explain you about the types of territories given in the under trusteeship system. Number 1, those territories which were under mandate system were given under the trusteeship system. Number 2, territories which may be detached from enemy state as a result of Second World War. Number 3, territories voluntarily placed under the system by the states responsible for their administration. So, there were 3 types of territories under trusteeship system. It was specified that the trusteeship system cannot apply to territories which have become members of the United Nations and whose relations are to be based on the principle of sovereign equality. After examining a brief introduction of trusteeship system, now I explain you objectives of trusteeship system. According to the Charter of the United Nations, there are some basic objectives of the trusteeship system. Number one, to further international peace and security. Number two, to promote the political, economic, social, educational advancement of inhabitants of the trust territories and their progressive development towards self-government of independence as may be appropriate to the particular circumstances of each territory and its people and the freely expressed wishes of the people concerned and as may be approved by the terms of each trusteeship agreement. Next, to encourage respect for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion, and to encourage recognition of the interdependence of the people of the world. Next, to ensure equal treatment in social, economic, and commercial matters for all members of the United Nations, and also equal treatment of the latter in the administration of justice without any prejudice to the attainment of the foregoing objectives. Our further discussion is about functions and duties of administrating states. The duties, the functions, the responsibilities of the states administrating the trust territories were explained in Article 73 of the United Nations Charter. It was emphasized that the interests of the inhabitants of the trust territories are paramount and the administrating state must promote the well-being of inhabitants of these territories. For this purpose, they were expected to ensure with due respect for the culture of the people concerned, their political, economic, social, and educational advancement, their just treatment and their protection against abuses. Next, to develop self-government to take due account of political aspirations of the peoples and to assist them in the progressive development of their free political institutions according to the particular circumstances of each territory and its peoples at varying stages of advancement. Next, to further international peace and security. Next, to promote constructive measures of development, to encourage research and to cooperate with one another and when were appropriate with specialized international bodies with a view to the practical achievement of the social, economic and scientific purposes set forth in the article and to transmit regularly to the Secretary General for information purpose subject to such limitations as security and constitutional considerations may require. Statistical and other information of a technical nature relating to the economic, social and educational conditions in the territories for which they are respectively responsible. The information transmitted by the administrating states is analyzed by the United Nations Secretary General and is later on considered by the General Assembly. And strategic areas are concerned direct to the Security Council, and Security Council responsible for all basic requirements regarding the strategic areas of trusteeship system. The functions of the United Nations with regard to the trust territories are performed by the General Assembly, and for strategic territories by Security Council, and more immediately by Trusteeship Council. And Trusteeship Council exercise supervision over the trust territories for the betterment, for the achievement of the purposes of this system. I further explain you next most important aspect of trusteeship system, and that is trusteeship system. Many trust territories become independent states. Under the trusteeship system, by the end of 1950, 10 trusteeship agreements had been approved by the General Assembly and one by the Security Council. As a result of these agreements, approximately 20 million people living in these territories came under the purview of trusteeship system. However, two of the former mandate territories of the days of the League of the Nations could not become part of the trusteeship system. Palestine was excluded on account of dispute between the Jewish and Arab population, which led to the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, and similarly, Northwest Africa could not become a trust territory because no agreement could be reached regarding its incorporation. So, main important point regarding the Palestine is that Palestine was and Palestine is and Palestine will remain a conflicting territory in the politics of Middle East due to the vested interest of superpowers. Now I explain you that there were major trust territories. Number 1, a part of Togoland. A part of Togoland was placed under British administration. The trusteeship agreement for this territory was approved by the General Assembly in December 1946. A plebiscite was held there on 9th May 1955, in which the majority of the people voted for union with neighboring Gold Coast. After approval by the Assembly, the territory was united with Gold Coast to form the new independent state of Ghana in March 1957. Next territory, and Togo. Another part of Togoland was placed under French administration. The General Assembly approved the trusteeship agreement in December 1946. The government, which came to power following general elections in April 1958, favored independence. So, agreement between France and Togoland regarded independence, and Assembly resolved that the trusteeship agreement be terminated with effect from 27th April 1960. So, Togo became independent sovereign state of the United Nations in 1960, and also become the member of the United Nations. Next, number 3. A part of Cameroon was placed under French administration. The trusteeship agreement was approved by the General Assembly in December 1946. In March 1959, the General Assembly voted to end the trusteeship agreement, and 1st January 1960, the territory became Republic of Cameroon. In September 1960, Republic of Cameroon was admitted to the United Nations membership. Next, a part of Cameroon was placed under British administration. In the result of plebiscites held in northern Cameroon and southern Cameroon in February 1961, the northern Cameroon by majority vote decided to join Niger, while the majority of southern Cameroon decided to join the Republic of Cameroon. Accordingly, in April 1961, General Assembly decided to terminate the trusteeship agreement concerning the Cameroons under British administration with respect to northern Cameroons as well as southern Cameroons. Next, Somaliland. Somaliland was placed under Italian administration, and an elected legislative assembly constituted for independent Somalia, which was approved in May 1960. In July 1960, it became independent. Sixth territory was Tanganyika, was placed under British administration trusteeship agreement. In May 1960, Tanganyika attained interim self-government. In 1961, the trusteeship agreement was terminated and Tanganyika became an independent state and was admitted as a member of the United States. So, next, Western Samoa. Western Samoa was placed under administration of New Zealand. In May 1961, in United Nations supervised plebiscite, the territory decided to become independent. The trusteeship agreement ceased to be in force on 1st January, and Western Samoa became an independent state. It was admitted as the member of the United Nations in December 1976. Number 8, Nauru. Nauru was placed under the joint administration of Australia, New Zealand, and United Kingdom. The trusteeship agreement was approved by the General Assembly in November 1947. A legislative council was created in January 1965 and a legislative assembly was elected in January 1968. Nauru became independent state in January 1968 when the trusteeship agreement was terminated. Ninth territory, Rwanda-Urundi. Rwanda-Urundi was placed under administration of Belgium, and the elections were held in Urundi in September 1961 and a government formed in July 1962. The assembly terminated the trusteeship agreement and Rwanda and Burundi emerged as a two independent and sovereign states. In September 1962, the two were admitted as members of the United Nations. Number 10. 10th territory or 10th trust territory was New Guinea. New Guinea was placed under Australian administration. In 1971, the Assembly of Papua and Trust Territory of New Guinea decided to form union of two territories to be named in Papua New Guinea. In May 1973, an agreement was reached with Australia that self-government be granted in two stages. In December 1973, the government of Australia transferred all internal powers to the territory, although it continued to have ultimate responsibility for the foreign affairs and defense of the territory. In September 1975, Papua New Guinea became an independent sovereign state and the trusteeship agreement was terminated with effect from that date. It was admitted as a member of the United Nations in October 1975. 11th. The trust territory of Pacific Islands was placed under the administration of United States. The trusteeship agreement for this territory was approved by the Security Council in April 1947. This territory, known as Micronesia, comprised of more than 2100 islands and atolls from three major areas and marinas, the Carolines and the Marshalls. In December 1990, the Security Council decided to dissolve the trusteeship over the strategic of Northern Marinas, Marshall Island and Micronesia. However, the Federated State of Micronesia and the Marshall Islands pressed for termination of the agreement so their governments could become more independent and gain worldwide diplomatic recognition. It may be noted that the two semi-independent nations have established diplomatic ties with several South Pacific countries and China. The last trust territory was Palau. The last trust territory was Palau, and the Trusteeship Council suspended operation 1st November 1994 with the independence of Palau. Palau was the last remaining United Nations Trust territory on 1st October 1994. So, concluding this topic of Trusteeship Council and Trusteeship system, I explaining you a very important point, and that point is that the Trusteeship Council suspended operation on 1st November 1994 with the independence of Palau, the last strategic territory of trusteeship system, which was under the supervision of the Security Council, and the last remaining United Nations Trust territory became independent on October 1994. By a resolution adopted on 25th May 1994, the Council amended its rules of procedure to drop the obligations to meet annually and agreed to meet as occasion required. By its decision or the decision of its president, or at the request of a majority of its member, or at the General Assembly, or the Security Council. Our concluding remarks are the aims of trusteeship system have been fulfilled. All 11 original trust territories under the trusteeship system of the United Nations, independent and trusteeship system have been fulfilled its all responsibilities to such an extent that all trust territories have attained self-government or independence, either as separate states or by joining neighboring independent countries. So, United Nations completed its basic responsibility of trust territories in an effective, practical, and successful way. And that is the end of today's discussion.